Some places are not officially closed, but people still stay away from them. Across the United Kingdom, there are locations that locals quietly avoid, not because they're forbidden, but because something about them doesn't feel right. Villages with a long history of strange sightings, ruins where stories never fully faded, and places where certain experiences are simply not explained. No clear warnings, no official reasons, just a shared understanding to keep a distance. Why are these places avoided, and what exactly has been seen there over the years? There are places history tried to forget, and stories that were never meant to be told, but the deeper you look, the harder they are to ignore. This is Behind Truths. The village where too many sightings were reported, and no one could explain why. Tucked away in the quiet countryside of Kent, Pluckley appears, at first glance, like any other traditional English village. Narrow roads, old cottages, a small church, nothing that immediately suggests anything unusual. But over the years, Pluckley has gained a reputation that sets it apart from almost anywhere else in the United Kingdom. It has often been referred to as one of the most haunted villages in England. What makes that claim unsettling isn't just the label itself, but the number of reports behind it. Unlike isolated stories that fade over time, the accounts here have continued for decades. Different people, at different times, describing experiences that share an unsettling similarity. One of the most well-known locations within the village is an area near the railway crossing, where multiple witnesses have reported seeing a figure standing near the tracks, always described in a similar way, always appearing briefly, and then gone. There are also accounts connected to a local brickwork site, long since abandoned, where people have claimed to hear sounds that don't match anything visible, footsteps, movement, the sense that someone else is there, even when the area is completely empty. And then there are the roads. Drivers passing through at night have described moments where something feels wrong, a sudden drop in temperature, the feeling of being watched. In some cases, shadows appearing at the edge of vision, only to disappear the moment they're looked at directly. What makes Pluckley different isn't one specific event, it's the pattern, because when stories come from different people, across different decades, and still follow the same themes, it becomes harder to dismiss them completely. There's no official explanation, no confirmed cause, just a long history of accounts that have never been fully understood. And yet, the village is still inhabited. People still live there, go about their daily routines, and treat it like any other place. But even then, there's an unspoken awareness. Certain areas are avoided at night. Certain stories are not discussed in detail, because whether believed or not, they've existed long enough to become part of the place itself, and that leaves a question that doesn't have a simple answer. When so many people report similar experiences in the same location, at what point does it stop being coincidence? But Pluckley is only the beginning, because the next place is older, darker, and carries a history that feels far more deliberate. A place that wasn't just avoided, it was abandoned. The ruins where the stories refused to fade, long after it was abandoned. Hidden within a wooded valley in Devon, the ruins of Bury Pomeroy Castle stand quietly, partially reclaimed by nature. Ivy climbs its stone walls, the surrounding trees pressing closely, and the silence there feels heavier than it should. At a distance, it looks like any other historic ruin, but the history of this place, and the accounts that followed, suggest something far less ordinary. The castle dates back to the 15th century, originally built by the Pomeroy family. Later, it passed into the hands of the Seymours, a powerful and influential lineage, and it's during this period that the stories begin to take a darker turn. One of the most persistent accounts is tied to a figure often described as a woman dressed in white, seen near the ruins or along the pathways leading towards them. Witnesses across different years have reported similar encounters, the same presence, appearing briefly, then vanishing without explanation. But that is only one part of it. Another figure is said to appear in darker tones, a shadowed presence, associated with the inner sections of the castle. Unlike the first, this one is rarely described in detail, only felt, a sudden shift in atmosphere, a heaviness in the air, the sense that something is close, even when nothing is visible. Visitors have also reported disorientation within the grounds, paths that seem to lead nowhere, moments where the silence becomes almost overwhelming, as if the environment itself has changed. And what makes these reports more unsettling is not just their nature, but their consistency. Different people, different times, similar descriptions. There is no official explanation for any of it, no confirmed events that fully account for what has been reported. But the castle was eventually abandoned, not destroyed, not completely erased, just left behind. And that raises an important question. Why are some places allowed to fade into history, while others seem to carry something forward with them? Because Berry Pomeroy doesn't feel entirely empty. Even now, those who visit often describe the same thing, not fear exactly, but the sense that they are not entirely alone, that something remains, not seen directly, but present enough to be noticed. And perhaps that is why places like this are not avoided out of superstition alone, but because something about them doesn't fully belong to the past. And if that feels unsettling, the next location shifts from ruins to something far more deliberate, a place built underground, used in ways that were never meant to be public, and what happened inside it has left behind far more questions than answers. The underground network where secret meetings took place, and no one knows everything that happened inside. Beneath the quiet countryside of Buckinghamshire, a network of man-made tunnels that extend deep into the earth, far beyond what would seem necessary for their original purpose. At first, the Hellfire Caves were created as a chalk mine in the 18th century, but that explanation only accounts for how they began, not how they were later used, because over time, the caves became associated with a group known as the Hellfire Club, a society made up of influential figures, including politicians and members of the aristocracy. What exactly took place within these tunnels has never been fully documented, but what is known suggests something far from ordinary. Meetings were held deep underground, away from public view. The location itself ensured privacy, isolated, enclosed, and impossible to observe from the outside. Whatever happened there was meant to remain hidden. Some accounts describe rituals, others suggest gatherings that went beyond what would have been publicly acceptable at the time, and while certain elements may have been exaggerated over the years, the secrecy surrounding the group has made it difficult to separate fact from speculation, but the structure itself remains, long corridors carved into the rock, chambers that feel deliberately placed, a layout that seems almost designed, not just functional. Visitors today often describe a shift in atmosphere as they move deeper inside. At the entrance, it feels like history. Further in, it feels different. Sound becomes distorted, the air feels heavier, and in some sections, there's a distinct sense of unease that isn't easily explained. Some report hearing movement where there is none. Others describe the feeling of being watched, even in empty passageways, not constant, but enough to leave an impression. And perhaps that's what makes this place stand out. Not just its history, but the fact that so much of it remains unclear. Because when a location is designed for secrecy, used by people who had every reason to avoid scrutiny, and then left behind with no complete record of what took place, it leaves a gap, and that gap invites questions. What actually happened in those tunnels? How much of it was hidden deliberately? And how much was never meant to be known at all? Because places like this are not simply abandoned, they are left behind, with their secrets intact. And if that feels unsettling, the next and final location brings the mystery much closer to something personal. Not a ruin, not a hidden network, but a place people still walk into. knowing exactly what is said about it, and yet, some still choose not to stay. The inn where people refuse to stay the night, even after walking inside. At the foot of the Skyrrid Mountain in Wales stands a small, unassuming building that has existed for centuries. From the outside, it looks like a traditional inn, old stone walls, low ceilings, and a history that stretches back further than most places still in operation today. But inside, the atmosphere feels different. The Skyrrid Mountain Inn is often described as one of the oldest pubs in Wales. Its age alone would make it significant. But what truly sets it apart is not just how long it has existed, it's what is said to have happened there. Historically, the building is believed to have been used as a courthouse during certain periods, and with that came something far darker: executions. It's said that individuals were sentenced within the building and then hanged nearby, in some accounts, even from a beam inside the inn itself. Whether every detail is fully documented or not, the association between the location and these events has remained for generations. And over time, the reports began. Staff and visitors have described unexplained occurrences, objects moving without cause, footsteps in empty rooms, and moments where the atmosphere shifts without warning. Not dramatic or constant, but subtle, enough to be noticed. Some who have stayed overnight have reported waking up suddenly, with no clear reason why. Others have described a strong sense of unease, particularly in certain parts of the building, as if specific areas carry more weight than others. But what stands out most is not the stories themselves, it's the reactions. Because even among those who visit out of curiosity, there are many who choose not to stay the night. Not because they were told not to, but because something about the place convinces them otherwise. And that's difficult to explain. There are no official warnings, no restrictions, just a long history, a series of accounts, and a feeling that has persisted over time. Because when a place has been standing for centuries, and certain experiences continue to be reported across different generations, it raises a question that is hard to ignore. Is it just history, or does something of it remain? Across this video, we've explored 4 real locations across the United Kingdom, places that are not officially closed, but are still quietly avoided. A village with decades of unexplained sightings, ruins where something never seemed to fade, underground tunnels built for secrecy, and an inn where history may not have fully settled. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these places would you actually visit, and which one would you avoid completely? And more importantly, do you think these locations are simply shaped by their past, or is there something else that people are still experiencing today? Let me know in the comments, because sometimes the places people avoid the most are the ones that leave the strongest questions behind.